to basic health care. And last but certainly not least, a governor who believes that every American's basic right to vote should be protected and not suppressed. Well, I stand before you tonight to inform you that I believe we have the right person for the job, and he's right here in this building with us tonight. It gives me great honor to introduce to some and present to others the next governor of Texas, Mr. Beto O'Rourke. Come on and put your hands together for the next governor of Texas.
Thank you. I gotta say, listening to Pastor Branch and Pastor Briggs and getting to hear Luann lead this community, Councilwoman Bonner reminding us of how we're going to do this. I just gotta say, I love the way that you all do Friday nights here in Lufkin. This is the way we do it. Some people go to the movies, others take their spouse or their girlfriend or boyfriend out to dinner. You all, more than 3 months away from an election that's going to determine and decide the future and the fortune and the fate of every one of us, the state of Texas, and every generation to come. You are here right now, organizing to make sure that we do everything that we've got to do in order to win it. And I want to tell you why I feel so good. This is a true story. It just happened to me right now. I haven't even had time to think through it. I'm just going to lay it out as it came to me. We were driving into your community right now from Palestine. We just had a great town hall there. Cynthia, 400 plus people came out in Palestine, Texas. She's saying thumbs up. It followed a town hall that we had in Longview this morning, which was also amazing. One that we had in Pittsburgh the day before, Texarkana before that, Clarksville. I could go on and on and on. So many great people coming together just like we are today. Well, as we come into your community, this thing that we're not used to in El Paso, where I live in the desert, starts falling out of the sky. It's called rain, apparently. It's raining, and it's amazing because we've been on the road, obviously, for most of the last 8 months, but straight for the last 10 days, nonstop. We started in El Paso, we went to Pecos, up to Muleshoe, Amarillo, and we cut across the north part of the state. The first time we have seen rain, a very good sign for a state that has been going through drought for a very long time. So that put a smile on our face, and I look up, and as we're coming into the city limits, I see someone who's got the Confederate battle flag waving up there. And for a second, you're tempted to focus on that, right? And to get angry and upset. Why would somebody do that today in 2022? But I looked a little bit higher and a little bit further past it, and there was a rainbow, right? Who does not love a rainbow? I love a rainbow. So, I just kind of filed away this note in my head that, sometimes you got to look past your present trouble. You got to look beyond those who aren't going to get with the program and make sure that you focus on the great things to come. And I'm thinking that as we're driving, we pull around this bend, and I shit you not, the end of the rainbow was right here in Lufkin. I'm not joking. I have, in my 49 years on this planet, I've never seen the end of the rainbow. We tell our kids the story about find the end of the rainbow. There's a pot of gold. There's a little Irishman, maybe named O'Rourke, who's going to be there. Capture him. You got this thing done. And then when your kids ask, why don't I ever see the end of the rainbow? You say, it's an optical illusion. There is no end of the rainbow. There really was an end to the rainbow. And Cynthia actually has the photograph of this. I had her take out her camera and said, take a picture of this. Am I just seeing this? Are you seeing this as well? And she said, I'm seeing it too. She got it on film on her our iPhone. We'll post it. That rainbow landed right here in this community. It is part of the reason, in addition to everything that I can measure, right? They polled this race in December. Quinnipiac did. It's the gold standard in political polling in America. They found us 15 points down. So bad, I don't even remember reading that poll. I just completely deleted it from my mind and kept moving forward. They took the measure of this race again a few weeks ago, only 5 points down. We cut that lead in 10 points. Thanks to all of you, everyone who's pitched in, more than 500,000 people gave a contribution to this campaign over the last 4 months. We raised $3 million more than the sitting governor of the state of Texas. Largest group of donors of those 500,000 were school teachers. School teachers stepping up again. We now have over 80,000 volunteers who signed up to pick up a clipboard, knock on doors, meet the voters who are going to decide the outcome of this election. And when you draw 400 people in Palestine, when we have nearly that number in Pittsburgh, when all of you are here on a Friday night, that sure feels good. But this rainbow landing here when we come here, it makes me feel like this community is going to produce the margin of victory on the night of November 8th. This is where it happens, right here in Lufkin, Texas. But it's not going to happen on its own. It's going to take, as we heard from the council member, it's going to take every single one of us doing all we can with what we have, where we are. Now, Chrissy Clayberg in the way back of this room is wearing a yellow reflective vest. Members of her team are also wearing these vests around the room. On their clipboards is the opportunity to add your name to go knock on doors, or to host a canvas where others will meet you at your home or the bar across the street or the park down the road to join you to go knock on doors. That's what it's going to take. We could put the most brilliant television ads in the world on the TV. You may not see them. You may have gained an immunity from TV ads over a lifetime of watching them. They just don't get through. They don't penetrate. They don't change your mind. But a human being in the year of our Lord, 2022, taking the time to meet you, to have a conversation about one of the two issues we're not supposed to discuss in polite company, the other being religion, and saying, listen, when it comes to politics, when it comes to voting, when it comes to our democracy, here's what's on the line. And the next thing you say is what comes from your heart, out of your own mouth. It can be that you want your rights protected. It can be that you want to marry whoever you want to marry without worrying about anybody attacking you for it. It could be that you're a school teacher and you want to work just one job instead of 2 or 3 so you can focus on those kids and families. Whatever the reason, you show up at that person's door and there's a far greater chance that they are going to vote in this next election. There are tens of thousands of people right here in Angelina County who were eligible to vote in 2020, the most important presidential election going all the way back to 1864 in my estimation. Tens of thousands who did not vote. Thousands more who've been added to the rolls since 2020. It's these young voters that we see here in the room. This is going to be a close election. We have yet to hear from or count the votes of tens of thousands just in this one of 254 counties in Texas. That's why I want you to join Chrissy and our team. Before you leave here, we'll be at either door to get your name, to ask you if you're willing to do this. I'll just caution you. You know, we're in a society and in a culture right now where we're always trying to pitch how easy something is. You don't have to lift a finger. We're just going to make this cruise control for you. That's not going to be the case with this. Bless you. That's not going to be the case with this. This is tough. It's hot out there right now. Some of these interactions are going to be pleasant. Some folks may not want to hear from you. Sometimes we'll get the right name at the right door. Sometimes our information's old and you're going to have to update it. But I'll tell you, having knocked on thousands of doors, tens of thousands of doors over the last 5 years, personally, There is nothing more fulfilling that I've ever done. The temptation to despair, given all these attacks on our democracy, on women's rights, on the LGBTQ community, on teachers right now, God forbid, in the state of Texas, the veterans who are unable in so many cases to find a roof for their head, to get into the VA, to get the medication or care that will save their lives, it can tempt us to despair. But action is the antidote to that. When you're talking to folks, you're no longer a bystander. This stuff's no longer happening to you. You're not simply bearing witness. You have agency. You have some control because you're taking action. And though you'll be tired at the end of that day, I'll tell you two things. One, you're going to feel so good about what you're doing. Two, that ice cold beer will never taste better than it does after you've been in the sun all day. So that's why I feel so confident that this community is going to take us over the top. That's why I'm asking you to help us to do it. But if none of that lands home with you, I'll just let you in on this. That rainbow hit a yellow Camaro, late model yellow Camaro. It was speed. We tried to catch up to see if we could beat the person inside. It was tracking that. So be on the lookout for that late model yellow Camaro in Lufkin, Texas, in addition to everything else that we need to be doing here. Let me just say a few things, and then we brought 2 microphones with us so we can listen to you. Because my best hope of effectively serving this community is to show up and listen and learn from you first. Find out what moves you, what excites you, what concerns you, what the opportunities are, what the unmet needs, because I don't know, and forgive me if I'm missing something, I don't think your governor shows up to meetings like these and takes questions from you and asks you what's on your mind. So allow me to do that. But first, let's describe what we're for and why we're doing this. At a time that this state, this country, is so divided and polarized, where we're tearing each other down and telling you who to hate and who to be afraid of, it's nice when we can decide that we're going to come together and do some things in common. And I want to be clear, this is not for one party over another, not to the benefit of some people, to the detriment of others. This is about all of us. So, if you're a Democrat, I'm glad you're here. Republicans, you are in the right place as well. Independents, we are glad to have you. This is an agenda that includes all of us, okay? So, I was talking about our veterans earlier, and I was mentioning that despite a $2 trillion GDP, there are some who are still experiencing homelessness by the hundreds, maybe by the thousands in this state. We don't lack for resources to do the right thing. We've just been missing the political will to actually do it. I propose that we as Texans and Americans, given that they were willing to give their lives for us to protect and serve this country, swore an oath not to a man, not to a political position, and not to a party, but to this Constitution, to our democracy that is under attack now, unlike any time in this country's past, at least during our lifetime. I want to make sure that we pay any price, we move any burden before us to make sure that every veteran has housing. We do that, and they can focus on their care, their education, their jobs, their family, and moving ahead. Furthermore, we have a crisis in this country, and it extends to this state of Texas, of veteran suicide. We don't like to talk about it because it's tough to imagine. But if we don't confront it and face it and acknowledge it, we'll never make it better. The official number is somewhere between 20 to 22 veterans each day take their lives in America. Given that we have more military installations, more military retirees, and more veterans who transition into civilian life here in Texas than anywhere else in the country, this is our problem right now to solve. For some, you're able to get into the VA, no problem, I'm grateful for it. For others, it may take not days, not weeks, but months and maybe even years to get in and see that provider who can save your life. I propose that we as Texans fund the gap where the VA's been unable to provide those services, ensure that we are willing to connect you with care wherever it is in the community, preferably through the VA. If we can't do it there, through county facilities, through state facilities, through private providers that we pay for. We set up a list that ensures that no one is waiting weeks or months, but only days, and if that, and it's an emergency, only hours or minutes to see that provider. Let's make sure that if you've just come back from a recent conflict in Afghanistan or Iraq, and you're having a hard time breathing, because while you were there, you were breathing in God only knows what from these toxic burn pits, that we set up a statewide registry to connect you with that care and learn and listen to our Vietnam-era veterans who waited 40 years for Agent Orange to be treated as a presumptive condition for the cancers they had, the conditions they died from. Those Vietnam-era vets are my heroes because not only do they stand up and fight for their generation, they are literally the first in line to fight for the generation that's coming home right now. And then last one. In a state that's 51st in access to mental health care, behind every other state and the District of Columbia, where it is near impossible in so many of our communities to get in to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist, if you even have one in a given county, especially the more rural and remote ones. When in a meeting just like this one in Lufkin in 2017, for the first time, I heard someone stand up, and you may be in this room right now, ma'am, who says, I want to tell you, Beto, that my brother, who doesn't have insurance, who doesn't qualify for Medicaid, and has schizophrenia, is getting arrested on purpose through sheriff's deputies here in Angelina County to be taken to the one place he's guaranteed any care whatsoever. Maybe a night or two there at taxpayer expense, $120 per night that we are all paying. Maybe some psychotropic medications, and then he's back out on the street again. Now, if he's a veteran, I want to connect him with that plan that I just described. If he's not, I want to make sure that we do the right thing by expanding Medicaid, bringing $10 billion a year into the state to connect more people with that care. And if this person tells us, you know, I went to the VA, or I got into a community clinic, and they prescribed me an opioid, to which I became addicted, and which I fear I may die from. And maybe they cut me off cold turkey, and now I'm buying drugs on the street. And you know what, Beto, for my post-traumatic stress disorder, for my traumatic brain injury, for those signature wounds and conditions that I endured and suffered in service to this country, the only thing, and I've heard this a million times from veterans in Texas, that makes me feel better, that increases my appetite, that allows me to sleep, that allows me to focus on what I'm doing, including my family, is cannabis or marijuana. And that veteran and that non-veteran alike will ask me, why if I use that to treat myself, am I treated as a criminal in this state? And why do we have more people behind bars in Texas than any other state? In this country, more people behind bars than any other country. And why are most of them there for nonviolent drug offenses, overwhelmingly black and brown in the state of Texas right now? I say, there's an answer to that. We are going to legalize marijuana in the state of Texas. No one holds time for possession of a substance that's legal in most of the rest of the country. And given who is disproportionately stopped, frisked, and incarcerated for possession, we are going to expunge the arrest records for everybody who has served time in the state of Texas. For the school teacher, who I guarantee you right now, as she gets ready for this next school year, out of her own pocket, is paying for the decorations in her classroom. On that first day of class, when that kid, and it was me, when I was in 6th grade, shows up unprepared, without the right school supplies, is going to pay for that child to have them. And if I've heard this once, I've also heard this one 1,000 times. That kid who shows up in the same dirty t-shirt, same dirty jeans, Monday, Tuesday, all the way through Friday, out of her own pocket over the weekend, buys him a new set of clothes so that he can hold his head high, learn with the other kids, have some self-dignity, confidence, be able to read just as much as the others. The fact that she is so underpaid right now, that she's working a second or third job, that she's considering leaving the profession, I want to make sure that we've got her back. I want to make sure that we've got his back. So here are my proposals based on what I've heard from educators across the state of Texas. Number one, We pay you enough to just have one job. That's in the classroom with those kids, unlocking their lifelong love of learning. We listen to you when you tell us that right now you're just trying to keep those kids alive. You're trying to connect with them after 2 years of a pandemic, of learning loss, of in some cases they lost their grandparents. There are folks that lost their jobs. You don't need another high-stakes, high-pressure test in your life or theirs. We will cancel the STAR test in the state of Texas so we can focus on connecting with those kids, drawing forth your lifelong love of learning. If you are a retired educator and you gave the best years of your life to this state and to our kids and have not seen a cost of living adjustment since the year of our Lord 2004, we are going to ensure you have a cost of living adjustment every year going forward. We are going to eliminate the windfall elimination provision so if you work quarters in the private sector and now cannot draw down Social Security because we punish you for being a public servant, we're going to remove that as an obstacle as well. Because how we treat those retired teachers and the teachers in the classroom today will determine our ability to recruit the next generation of teachers into the profession. And ladies and gentlemen, we are losing them by the thousands. I want to make sure that our communities, whether you live in Angelina or you get clear across the state into the Mountain Time Zone in El Paso County, that the best jobs in this country are being created right here in this state and in our communities. And listen, we all love and probably have relatives in Austin, in Dallas, in San Antonio, in Houston, and some of these bigger cities. And we do not begrudge them their success. But when all the state resources are directed to the typical places and don't find their way into our communities, when we don't have the infrastructure, whether it's water systems, roads, or broadband internet in our rural communities, when we're not paying our school teachers enough to keep them on the payrolls in our communities, when we have not created job opportunities for people to come back to, and so the young people find other places to go to, then our towns really struggle to move forward. And we as parents and grandparents who've invested all of our love, all of our money in the success of our kids, we see return on that investment produced somewhere else. I want to make sure that every one of our 254 counties, including Angelina, and more remote and rural counties that surround us, get their fair share of state spending. The only way to do that is to show up in these communities and find out what we need to be spending money on. Working with our city council representatives and being a partner who sits across the table with you and gets the job done. Now think about that agenda. There may be some things that we disagree on, but I bet we can all get behind getting behind our veterans, supporting our public school educators, and ensuring that we have world-class schools, creating better jobs in every single one of our communities, expanding Medicaid so more people can see a doctor. World-class schools, great jobs, the ability to be healthy enough and well enough to live to your full potential. Now, find me the Republican, or the Independent, or the Democrat for that matter, who wants to take the other side of this argument. These are the things that will make all of us better, that will grow this economy, produce more job opportunities throughout the state, improve our quality of life. No longer force us to be ashamed of the headlines that this state is making around the country and around the world for all the wrong reasons, right? It's a big agenda for a big state. And it is the perfect contrast to the absolute chaos and cruelty and corruption and incompetence that we see from those in power today. This was brought up earlier, but when you can't keep the lights on, or the heat running, or the water flowing, and then your pipes burst because they're frozen, and it doesn't just happen to a few people, it happens to tens of millions of people in the energy capital of the world, when more than 700 of our fellow Texans lose their lives, not because of God or Mother Nature, but because the man in power cannot keep the power on for the people he is supposed to serve. When our utility bills go up, and those who illegally profited by the tune of $11 billion of the suffering of our fellow Texans over the course of 5 days, become the largest campaign contributors to that sitting governor. The thing that we cannot understand that is otherwise inexplicable is understood by all of us as we follow the money. That's incompetence, that's cruelty, that is corruption. When 9 weeks after 19 kids were shot at point blank range with a weapon originally designed for use for war, to shoot and kill an enemy soldier at 500 feet, to penetrate that enemy soldier's helmet, and those kids were shot at 5 feet, and none of them were wearing a thing on their head except maybe a ball cap, and nothing has been done by this government to change the likelihood that this will happen again before the start of the next school year, which in El Paso, where my 3 kids go to school, is in 3 days. In your community, maybe a few weeks after that. When you have someone who's beholden to the gun lobby and cares more about their interests than he does ours. When you have someone who oversees a child protective services system with 32,000 foster kids, many of whom tonight will be sleeping in those CPS offices, in the hallways, under the tables, atop the desks. We've lost the lives of 100 kids in CPS care just since 2020. And every single year since this guy has been governor, he's been warned by Judge Jack, a federal Jack. She said 6 years ago, Mr. Governor, these kids emerge more damaged than when they went in. Please do something about it. This year, she said, Governor, it has gone from bad to worse. And you know what he wants to do? Instead of fixing that, the master of distraction says, watch out for those transgender kids. Coming to get you, right? You know what? They're coming to get you, and so what I will do is issue an executive order urging CPS to pursue their parents for child abuse of all things. And if that accusation is sustained, not only is that transgender child removed from that home, so is every other kid in the care of those loving parents who are doing everything they can to help that child navigate one of the toughest moments in his or her life. Putting them into that very system that he's taken from bad to worse over the last 7 years. That's the chaos, the corruption, the incompetence, the cruelty that we're running against right now. Our agenda is about bringing us together to do the big things. He's going to tell you who to hate, who to be afraid of. He's going to raise boogeymen like socialism and CRT and immigrants who are coming to get us, right? When you ask him, why haven't you fixed the grid? He said, watch out for those Mexicans. When you said, why haven't you done anything since Uvalde? He said, CRT. You know, if you bring up an issue, he will find someone to make you afraid of or distract you from the big things that we should be able to do. And ladies and gentlemen, you know this as well as I. We were born together to do them, right? That's who we are as Texans. We are not founded on fear or hatred. We're founded on aspiration and ambition and the hard work we're willing to do in order to achieve those goals. That is us. That is this campaign. And that is you if you're willing to sign up and join us in this effort. I tell you, whether it's rainbows or polls or people coming out, I feel very good about where we are right now. And should you ever falter in your faith about what is possible, let me leave you with this. We've been up against greater challenges before, and we have prevailed. I'll give you just a couple of examples. Prior to 1973, abortion was also outlawed in the state of Texas. But no one rode in from the outside to rescue the women of this state. It was the women of Texas who led the way for this country. Jane Roe of Roe versus Wade was represented by 2 Texas women in front of an all-male Supreme Court. Linda Coffey and Sarah Weddington from that liberal bastion of Abilene, Texas, successfully pled that case and won the protection for the right to privacy to make a very personal, very often a very painful decision on your own. That withstood the test of time and every manner of attack for nearly half a century. That was Texas women then, it will be Texas women again today. And then lastly, you mentioned voting rights, and I heard you say democracy earlier, and we pay tribute to those women and men who put their lives on the line to defend this, which is the exception on the planet today, absolutely the exception in world history. That we can pull this off 246 years and counting is pretty damn close to a miracle, but it's not a miracle. It was won by those who were willing to fight for it, even willing to die for it. And yes, it was those in uniform, including those who landed on those beaches in June of 1944 to fight fascism half a world away, to defend democracy at home. But it was also the civil rights and voting rights marchers of the 1950s and 1960s who finally shot the conscience of this country into doing the right thing and setting up the first truly multiracial democracy, really in world history, at least in American history. Now, why did the first Texas president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, compel that Congress in '65 to do that so he could sign it into law that very summer? He was moved by the young people. John Lewis, 24 years old, attempting to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. Not only did he do that, a week afterwards, when LBJ calls that Congress together, he points to John Lewis and to those young marchers, and he says, "Men and women of the United States Congress, as they did at Concord in the Revolutionary War, as they did at Appomattox in the Civil War, so they do today in 1965, fighting for and willing to lose their very lives for our democracy." Now, you and I, we inherited their sacrifice, their struggle, their service. This is the moment under which it is at its greatest point of attack, and we may lose it forever unless we fight and win it back. So, to few generations, Concord, Appomattox, 1965, I would argue the people of 2022 fall the opportunity to fight for everything that we care about, everything that makes this country and our state great. We should count ourselves so lucky to be alive and in Texas right now with the ability to fight for and win this election together. Thank you for coming out tonight. Thanks for being with us, Lufkin. We are so grateful to you. This time over. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
If you have a question, raise your hand and I will make my way around to the room. I see my first question.
We're going to try to get as many questions, comments, suggestions in and get as many voices heard in this conversation. And then we'll stick around for a little while to say hello to anybody who wants to shake hands or take a photo.
And there's a lot of hands up, so please just keep your questions to one question so we can get to a lot of people in the room.
Hi.
Hey there.
My name is Alexis. I'm from Nacogdoches, Texas. I'm 19.
Alexis, are you registered to vote?
I am registered to vote.
Sounds like this is going to be your first gubernatorial election. Thank you for being a first-time voter. We are excited about you. We're counting on you.
Okay, so my question is, so I'm really big on the environment and going green and sustainability and stuff. I was wondering if, you had any plans for, clean energy, renewable energy for Texas.
Thanks for being here. Absolutely. No state understands this climate crisis better than we do, given the fact that we're living in. I mentioned historic droughts. We also have historic rainfall in southeast Texas during Hurricane Harvey. More of that stuff dumped out of the sky in a 24-hour period than has ever been recorded. Washed whole neighborhoods, homes, and people, unfortunately, away. So we're bearing the brunt of this right now. We have the most to gain if we can overcome it before it is too late. As you know, we're now the energy leader of the world, primarily through oil and gas. And look, I'm grateful for that. Those in the oil and gas industry have secured our energy independence. They ensure that we've got what we need to burn in our Toyota Tundra as we cross the state. Those are good jobs. They've improved our national as well as statewide economy. But it's time that we build on that with significant investments in wind, in solar, in geothermal, in hydrogen, in battery storage, in those things that we should be able to distribute onto our grid so that we never have to worry about whether the lights are going to turn on, whether the heat is going to run. And in addition, the AFL-CIO of the state of Texas, these are our steel workers and electricians and pipe fitters and plumbers and communication workers, other working men and women have come up with a jobs plan based on your idea and your question. They propose creating more than 1 million jobs in clean, renewable energy, those areas I just described, as well as investing in energy efficiency, making sure that buildings like these run with less power. The jobs necessary to make that happen are high paying, they are local. We don't have folks coming in from the outside. We train and hire our own right here. So whether it's growing the economy, whether it's creating better jobs, whether it is saving the planet, whether it's having pride of place in leading in the next energy revolution, I want that to happen right here in the state of Texas. Thank you for being here. Thanks for voting. There you are.
Hi, I was in Palestine earlier, and I'm from Northeast Texas in Marion County. I couldn't make it along, you had to work. But I'm someone's daughter, I'm someone's sister, I'm someone's godmother, I'm someone's friend. But according to the Republican Party, I'm an abomination. And the Supreme Court says, as a queer woman, I have no rights, and they're going to take them away from me. It's going to become a state issue. What can you do to help protect me and the other people in my community for our safety? Because we're under attack.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. This may be something of a worldview that I have on issues like these, which is I'm sick of us being on the defense and being defensive and hoping and praying that something worse isn't going to happen down the road. We're trying to fix the bad things that are already happening right now. You know, the result of that, the logical conclusion of that, is Clarence Thomas writing a consenting opinion to Dobbs that says next on the chopping block is contraception, is marriage equality, is intimacy between same-sex partners. In other words, reviving our sodomy laws in Texas and across the country. In this state right now, though it's not okay, it's perfectly legal to fire you if you're gay, or not hire you in the first place if you're part of the LGBTQ community. Though it's not okay, it's perfectly legal to deny you the ability to adopt a child into a same-sex household. That's happening today in 2022. And I mentioned earlier the governor's executive order to pursue the parents of transgender kids. I don't just want to stop that stuff, although we've got to stop it too. I want to make sure that we are proud of who we are, that we're standing up for one another, that we proactively change those laws so you can never be discriminated against for hiring or firing or adoption or marriage or anything else. I want Texas to be the destination for talent in whatever form it takes, whether you're born here or whether you want to come here. I want everyone to be treated with the dignity and respect that they are owed as Americans, as Texans, as human beings in this state. I mentioned the pride I feel in LBJ, the first Texas president, signing into law the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. I want us to be known for civil rights leadership once again. The rest of the country, this is the last place they'll expect it to come from. We will sneak up on them. We will get this done in Texas. Imagine winning this election on this platform of fiercely defending marriage equality, of having the backs of those who are transgender in our community. I'm not being afraid of the things that we believe in. We need to be strong by and for one another. I'll do this on the campaign trail. I promise you I'll do it as governor, and I'll be your partner to get it done. Thanks for being here.
My name is Lufkin. I live in Mount Enterprise, which is about an hour away from here in Rusk County. So I'm a hospice nurse. I've been a hospice nurse for over 13 years, and you were talking about the veterans, and I got to give you all a little backstory real quick. I'm also a certified cannabis nurse. I want to help you on the cannabis team when you go to legalize cannabis. I take care of veterans all the time. And the whole reason I became a cannabis nurse was because I had a Vietnam veteran who was 100% Agent Orange disabled. He had a AKA amputation. He was on opioids so bad that his wife, he would like to go to the casino, and his wife would have to tell him every 4 hours, take your hydrocodone. He was on morphine tablets twice a day, hydrocodone every 4 hours, gabapentin, clonazepam. He was on a butt ton of medicines. These veterans don't want to take this 5-pill cocktail that they get when they come back from the war. Anyway, I walk into his house first day. He said, "What do you think about smoking?" I said, "Smoking what?" He said, "Smoking weed." I said, "At your house, you do what you want." So, him and his wife, again, not just a quick drive to Houston, it's an 8-hour drive, and they come back with a felony amount of weed, of flour, or what I call flour. Because he knew he would never be able to leave again to go do this. He was dying. He had stage 4 lung cancer. Who thought he just had a torn rotator cuff? Had stage 4 lung cancer up and down his spine and his shoulder. Started smoking. 3 hits a day, three hits at a time, 2 to 3 times a day. He got off his hydrocodone, he got off his gabapentin, he got off his clonazepam, he went on a boat tour with his wife and another couple. He ate a whole plate of Mexican food. He went to the concert at the casino and enjoyed the casino. And this is why I am such a big advocate for cannabis. For those of y'all that are in here that say, "Oh, I'm only for the medical side," there is nothing wrong to be able to grow your own medicine in your backyard without some sort of regulation on there that says, "Oh, our problem is Dan Patrick." Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick will not let anything get heard from the committee's calendar onto the Senate floor for the senators to vote on these bills. So when y'all go to the polls, don't vote straight ticket. You cannot, you Republicans who go out there and vote straight ticket because it follows. Okay, well that's new because everybody has been voting straight ticket because they don't want to. Okay. So, well, because they wanted to get in and get out in 5 seconds, and these veterans deserve more than that. They have fought longer than that. So my question is are you going to do an executive order to get cannabis passed? Would it be helpful to say you have cannabis nurses on your board to help with this? Because there's not many in Texas, but we have some because we're all afraid of losing our nursing license. So what can we do to make sure that the people out here who don't agree with cannabis, that let's change our minds?
Thank you for being here. Thanks for sharing this story with us. It draws us in. It invokes our empathy. One of the best things working in our favor to get cannabis legalization passed is, this is a secret that I'm going to let you all in on. Republicans like marijuana just as much as Democrats like marijuana in this state. I think you made the case better than I ever could because you're taking care of somebody who did everything this country asked him to do, has come back at the end of his life, otherwise enduring unbelievable pain, and he's found a way to treat it. It doesn't hurt anybody else. He will not become addicted from it. It's not something that he can overdose or die from. Are there challenges with marijuana or cannabis? Absolutely. I've got a 15, a 14, and an 11-year-old in the house. I do not want them using them, especially while they're young. Their brains are still forming. What I know from what limited information I've read is that can be dangerous to the formation of your brain when you're a kid. But right now, in a black market, dealers don't discriminate. If you have the money, they don't care if you're 12 years old, 15 years old, or 90 years old. They will sell it to you. And for those who worry about marijuana being a gateway drug, it is so long as it is illegal. Because the person selling you marijuana, who today in the eyes of the law is a criminal, it's no skin off their back to also sell you meth or hydrocodone or heroin or anything else. Let us take it out of the black market, get it into a regulated, controlled market. Let us stop spending $500 million a year. That's what we spend to put people behind bars for this substance right now. Let's tax it as they do in other states and bring in another $500 million. That's $1 billion to the positive for the state economy. And by the way, we also help out these veterans who otherwise would be criminals in Texas. This is the right thing to do. So yes, I'll use every lever at my control as governor, but what the best one is going to be working with the legislature. And I tell you what, this is increasingly a bipartisan issue, but I'm going to want your help to get the other side to the table to get this done. Thank you for being here. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it done.
I am undocumented. I came came at the age of 3. I just wanted to ask you, for people like me that after high school, you know, life becomes a big what if, you know, I can't get a license, I can't get a job here, you know. Do you plan on helping people like me? Because I do want to have a future here and I want to be able to contribute to Texas because I love Texas. Yeah. We love you.
I mentioned that right now when we talk about immigration, when we talk about the border, it is done so to distract you from real problems that we have. And it's never in the service of a real solution, right? We're going to put these migrants on these buses and send them to Washington, D.C. We're going to build a couple of miles of a border wall as though that's going to do anything. We're going to involuntarily activate 10,000 members of the Guard in the state of Texas, including women and men from this community, who have less than a week to say goodbye to their kids and their jobs and go to the border for a 1-year deployment where they have no arrest or detention powers, where 8 of them, unfortunately, have died so far. 4 of them have taken their own lives. 4 of them have died in questionable circumstances. None of them, by the way, were killed by migrants or anybody coming over the border from Mexico. Those are all stunts. But what is even worse is the language that this current governor traffics in. On the eve of the El Paso shooting, when 23 of my neighbors were killed by a guy who said that he came to kill Mexicans, that he came to repel the Hispanic invasion of Texas, after being told over and over again by the people in power that there was an invasion taking place coming across the border from Mexico. On the eve of that, Greg Abbott sends out a mailer that says, Texans, we must defend ourselves from this invasion. And then he said, take matters into your own hands. That's the governor of the state of Texas. I mentioned this chaos and this cruelty earlier. It's like that vigilante bill against women. You know, prior to the Dobbs decision, there was a 6-week abortion ban with a $10,000 bounty on the back of anyone who assisted any woman in making this decision. Why do so many women fear staying in this state? That's a big reason why. Why do so many people in El Paso of Mexican heritage, why are they concerned about walking the streets of that town? It is because of that. So what you're asking for and what we all deserve are solutions. The vast majority of people coming to this country and people who have come to this country, like your parents, coming here to work. They're coming here to join family. They're coming here to seek asylum because to return to their home country may mean the certain death of their children or of themselves. That's the vast majority, 97, 98%, maybe higher. Right now, there is not a safe, orderly, legal path for people to do that. If you haven't experienced it, try getting a work visa. If you live in Mexico or any other country in the world, you can do it. It's incredibly expensive and onerous and bureaucratic. If you live in Mexico and you want to join your family who have naturalized here, the back of the line is 20 years long. That's how long you'll be waiting if you do this the right legal way. Now listen, that long line and your temptation to jump it does not justify breaking the law. I'm not condoning that. But I want to make sure we understand why that happens today. And then to your point, Pedro, we've got hundreds of thousands of young people who are contributing so much to the success and yes, the safety and the security of our communities and the state, but they can't get driver's licenses. It's harder for them to get into colleges or get student loans. They can't start businesses and get financing. Otherwise, they cannot create jobs that they would otherwise be creating in our communities. So, instead of stunts, how about these solutions? Number 1, Texas leads the way nationally in ensuring that we give citizenship to the dreamers who are here, who are already contributing so much. We work to make sure that their parents who made this decision to come here to do better for themselves and their kids, but also to do better for all of us, can also find a path to citizenship. Safe, legal, orderly, quick. That means we follow the law. We know who's in this country. And if anyone poses a danger, we can address that. If you come here to work, there is an expanded guest worker program that we'll work on together that says there's a safe, legal, orderly path for you to come here. If you want to work in the cotton gin, or in the fields, or in the restaurants, or on the roofs, or in the slaughterhouses, these are the jobs that immigrants overwhelmingly, and in some cases exclusively, do in the state of Texas. Walk into any cotton gin in the Panhandle or West Texas and find someone born in that community working any of those jobs. You won't. I've been to them. The managers tell me nobody will take them. There's got to be a path to do that. If you live in Mexico, you want to join family here, let's reduce that wait time by lifting the per country cap, especially for countries like Mexico that border us here in Texas. And then, if you want to claim asylum, we've got to allow you to successfully petition for that here in the United States quickly. The adjudication today may take 6 years when you're waiting in limbo, and you may be forced to live and stay in Ciudad Juarez in squalor, where your kids can be attacked or kidnapped or even killed. Let's allow you to petition here, and if you pass the bar, the threshold, then you stay here. If you don't, you're returned to your home country. We follow our laws. We do that. That's 97% plus of the flow. Then we can focus on the few who want to come here to traffic illegal drugs, to traffic in human beings, to do us harm. We will be that much more effective, safe, and secure. Time for Texas to lead on this. Thank you, Doug, for being here. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Ask Massey. I'm 18 years old, and our current governor has decided to make abortion completely illegal for women that have been raped, have medical emergencies, or even have been victims of incest, and it's devastating and it's scary for a lot of women of Texas, and we just want to know what you're going to do to protect the women of Texas.
Thanks for asking this question. As you mentioned, no exception for incest, no exception for rape, a total ban beginning at conception in the state of Texas. When the governor was asked about rape and reminded by a reporter that there's no exception for it, he told that reporter that he would eliminate rape in the state of Texas. He doesn't want you to worry about it. He's got a solution. There's just no more rape in Texas. Done. Here's the truth, unfortunately. More rapes have been committed in Texas than any other state, all on his watch. There are thousands of untested rape kits at Department of Public Safety. That's the state troopers that he has command and control of. Thousands of untested kits. In fact, the rate of bringing someone to justice for rape has declined by half on this guy's watch. So, more violent crimes like rape and murder being committed on his watch, fewer of them being solved on his watch, and forcing women to carry the child of their rapist, or God forbid, their father or a family member, or someone in their household today. What are we going to do about this? 10-year-olds, someone just mentioned. We just saw that case. 10-year-olds. So what are we going to do about it? This is one that is really going to test our capacity to listen and work with people who come to different conclusions than we do. Just as you may not be able to be talked out of your position on choice, we shouldn't try to talk someone out of a position that they may describe as pro-life. However they came to it, that's their business, not ours. We're going to respect that. So our charge is to find the common ground. And what I've found is that when I have these conversations with folks who maybe disagree with me on this, and I remind them that there are no exceptions for those two, rape or incest, that we lead the developed world in the rate of maternal mortality, which is 3 times as deadly in Texas for black women as it is white women. Because when it becomes impossible to get an abortion, in many communities, it's impossible to get a cervical cancer screening, or see a family planning provider, or see a doctor of any kind. That we now lead the nation in not just the rate of teen pregnancy, but repeat teen pregnancy, because family planning is also under attack, and I mentioned contraception as well. When you lay all that out there, even the most ardent pro-life Texan says, you know what, that's not right. And the public polling confirms this. 11%, not so menos, Crystal, correct me if I'm wrong, 11% of our fellow Texans agree with Greg Abbott that there should be a total abortion ban beginning at conception without exception for rape or incest. That means with the other 89% of this state, there's going to be some common ground to make this better. But the last thing that I want to say is you asked, what will you do, Beto? And I mentioned earlier, it was never one person, it certainly wasn't a man who established this right to privacy for women to make their own decisions. It was the women of the state of Texas. I have seen you show up in record numbers at these events. I know that after we win, you will apply the pressure on those in positions of public trust, including Republicans, to ensure that they claim a seat at that table as we work to overturn this total abortion ban, this bounty hunter law that is also still on the books, and restore that protection for that right for every woman in this state to make her own decisions about her own body. The thing that they care most about, any of them, if you were to administer the truth serum to them, is winning their own re-election. When they feel like that is threatened because you are showing up in record numbers, they're going to get to the table and do the right thing. I'll be there with you. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
Hi, sir. I'm Reverend Dr. Keith Youngbrew, Mayor of Garrison, Texas. And next week, I scheduled a citizen active shooter forum in town. This is a citizen that lives in Garrison as well, Miss Matthew. And we saw what happened with the kids in Uvalde. And we have a population of about 1,000 people. And so I don't carry a gun, she doesn't carry a gun, but everywhere you go, there's a gun. You know, people have guns, and back in the early 90s, I used to be in law enforcement in Garrison, and we used to get fired up if we saw a shotgun in the truck, you know. And now you can go to any dollar store, gas station, whatever, and there's a gun. So with this active shooter forum, matter of fact, it's going to be on Tuesday. A lot of people have already said, you know, well, I carry a gun, but I'm not going. You know, it's only 1,000 people in Garrison, and it's like, you need to come so that law enforcement can tell us what we do, what we need to do, if we ever have to face a situation like Uvalde. And so everybody just kind of act like it's no big deal. You know, I carry my own gun, and if anything happens, I'm going to shoot and ask questions later. And I do understand that we have the right to bear arms, everybody. But our local school district in Garrison, through the school board, last week, they said that they were going to make it where people that they pick, staff members, will be able to carry guns, like 5 people, after school with the kids. And, you know, teachers have bad days too, so what do I tell and I didn't mean it in that. But as mayor of a small town, what do I tell the people in this forum that's nervous about all these guns, and now we're fixing to have 5 guns at our school?
That's it. I like that answer as well. First of all, Mayor, thanks for coming here. And thanks for asking a question that I think is on all of our minds right now. I mentioned my wife Amy and I are about to send our 3 kids off to school with no changes having been made to ensure that they will be safer than those kids in Uvalde were at the end of the school year, which is just a little more than 2 months ago. You look at Uvalde, you look at that shooting I described in El Paso, you look at the one that took place a month after El Paso in Midland, Odessa, where 8 people were killed, Santa Fe High School in Galveston County, Sutherland Springs, 5 of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history have taken place in this state in the last 5 years. Now why is that? We could just accept that as our fate. You know, we're just inherently evil, violent, we like to shoot each other up. But I don't think any of us are buying that line, right? I don't think this is also a natural phenomenon or something that God has visited on us. I think this is a man-made, human-made problem with a human solution. And in a democracy, that's not easy. It gets a little bit messy. We've got to find that common ground. We were talking about this earlier on reproductive health care and abortion. Most of us, myself included, grew up with firearms in the household. Grew up understanding not just how to use them, the responsibility that comes with using them. That's our tradition. That's who we are. We had, you mentioned folks carrying guns in your community. We used to have, until Greg Abbott did away with it last year, something called license to carry. If you wanted to carry a gun in public, You had to go through a background check. You had to do some training. We had to vet you to make sure you weren't going to use that against yourself, your wife, your classmates, your colleagues, or someone in the community. It worked. 38,000 times over the last 5 years, law enforcement denied a Texan the ability to carry a gun in public because they deemed that person too dangerous. With permitless carry, which Abbott signed into law last year, CRT, that's another thing he wants to focus on. LTC, a license to carry, has been done away with. All 38,000 of those who were denied that ability to carry in public, they can carry in public right now. We're none the wiser or safer for it, as can thousands of others who knew better than to ever apply for that license to carry because they would not have passed it. So, what do? Here's what I'd like to do. First and foremost, when it comes to these high-powered weapons originally designed for use in war, I say just keep that stuff on the battlefield. We don't need it in our communities. I don't think we should be selling AR-15s or AK-47. You listen to the physicians who responded to that massacre in Uvalde. You listen to the parents who had to identify their kids by the shoes they were wearing because they couldn't identify them by what was up here anymore. That high-impact, high-velocity round is not intended for anything other than killing human beings. We know that. In fact, I just saw a Vietnam-era veteran. AR was first developed for use in Vietnam. And he said, Beto, I'm here to testify. I know, I've seen what that does to human beings. Try hunting a deer with that. There's nothing left to eat. You'll explode the deer with that. We don't need it to hunt. We don't need it for self-defense. And that is not to say that everyone who owns an AR-15 or an AK-47 is going to go shoot up a school. In fact, the vast majority won't. And I respect those who come to a different conclusion on this issue. I'm just saying, after so many of these mass shootings with these kinds of weapons, we've got to make a decision. And as Americans, we realize that the Second Amendment is not absolute. There's limitations on all of our constitutional protections. For the First Amendment, you can't stand up and yell fire and cause a panic and people to trample one another. That's not protected. And for the Second Amendment, we can't carry grenade launchers or even automatic machine guns, which we once used to be able to do in America until 1934, when we as a country said, you know what, these weapons are on that side of the line. That's the way I feel about ARs and AK-47s. Now look, we may not be able to get to agreement on that. So what if we just raise the age of purchase from 18 to 21? In my health, this young man in Uvalde waited patiently for his 18th birthday to buy those 2 AR-15s and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Imagine if we could have bought another 3 years to potentially intervene before it was too late. We could have a universal background check. Right now, you have a background check if you go to a firearms dealer or a gun store. But if you buy from a private seller, there is no background check. That's how those folks in Midland, Odessa died. The guy trying to buy the AR-15 in that community couldn't pass the background check in the store, bought from a private seller, went out and just started shooting people in that community. A red flag law, which says if you already have the firearm, but you're threatening to use that firearm against yourself, you have a crisis with firearm suicide in this state, if you're threatening to use it against your wife, against the kids in your school, the Uvalde shooter was sending off signals in every direction so bad that prior to him going in and shooting those kids in the school, his friends called him the school shooter. Nothing on the books that would have allowed law enforcement to intervene. We need a red flag law that says if you're doing this kind of thing through due process, we can go remove that firearm from your possession until we are assured that you're okay and you're not going to use it against somebody else. Now, those 3 things won't stop every instance of gun violence, right? Raising the age, expanding background checks, implementing a red flag law. But they'll prevent so many of the disasters that I just described right now while still protecting your constituents' rights to own and bear firearms. That's Second Amendment. So defend the Second Amendment, do a better job of protecting our fellow Texans. We're going to get that done. Thanks for asking the question. Appreciate it.
many great questions. I wish we could get to them all, but I only have time for 2 more.
Whenever we have a disaster hit, hurricane or snow, ice that destroys our homes, and we're put out, we can't rebuild, the federal government sends money to the state of Texas, and it's been over 3 years now, and we still don't have that money to operate and rebuild. We have to go borrow money from the bank or wherever to get our home back in place, and they're sitting on our money and won't turn it loose. How do we get our money from the state of Texas that's sitting on it?
Thank you for asking this question. And it's everywhere in the state. It's here, as you just described. It's in Houston. 5 years after Hurricane Harvey, these folks whose homes were flooded still have not, in many instances, received a dime of the very federal income taxes that they paid up to D.C. and came back down to our state in a FEMA block grant and didn't go to the one place that got hit the hardest. TxDOT is sitting on $8 billion unspent that could go into infrastructure right here in this community. There is a rainy day fund that is not used after more rain fell from the sky than ever before in recorded human history, and it did it in southeast Texas. It's the wildfires burning in North Texas right now, the drought in the Panhandle and in northeast Texas, not too far from where we are. As I mentioned earlier, a $2 trillion economy, a $250 billion biannual budget, billions of dollars in the bank and in that rainy day fund. We do not lack for resources, we lack for political will. And part of that is born in our politicians and elected leaders not showing up to these communities to be held accountable by you. That's why I'm here right now. And that's why I want to come back. That's why I want to come back as your governor. I fear you. I expect you to ask me this question. I'm going to be telling Cynthia, hey Cynthia, this guy's going to ask me about getting these federal resources that came through the state into this community. Where are we? When I was in Congress for 6 years, we held a town hall meeting just like this. All comers welcomed, no holds barred. Anyone could ask any question. We would stay for hours. We would get kicked out of the place by the people running the space because we wanted to make sure that we talked to everybody. That induced a healthy dose of fear. I'd have to explain the votes that I took in Congress, how I used my time in that position of public trust on behalf of the community, and whether I followed through on commitments that I made publicly in front of everyone, especially the person asking the question. So I commit to you right here that we will do everything we can to make sure that state resources that are subsidized by the federal government make their way through to the communities that need them most. Thanks for asking. Really appreciate it.
This is going to be our last question.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Latoya Walker-Hernandez. I am a mental health therapist, which is a whole other issue. I'm here today to speak on my community. I'm from Nicton, a community that was founded by former slaves. For many years, we've had very poor water quality. The water quality is comparable to Flint. We've contacted the local government, our congressman representative here, and we've no help. So you as our next governor, what do you plan to ensure that all kids, all elderly have clean water, one of the basic necessities?
Thank you for being here. Cynthia, I want to make sure that we're connecting on this. So, the community she's from is one of the dozens in Texas where it is not safe to drink the water. We have more fouled water systems in this state than any other. And I hate to keep reminding you of how we are last in the nation in one category after another, but this is one of those, and it pertains to the gentleman's question right now. President Biden and both Republicans and Democrats in Congress on a bipartisan basis passed one of the, if not the largest infrastructure bills since the highway system was built in the Eisenhower administration. That money is coming to the state. We still have no idea how it will be spent to help the most vulnerable, including kids who should be able to depend on being able to drink what comes out of that faucet. A lot of attention was spent on Flint, and I'm grateful for it. I went up there to meet with those families, to understand what they were going through. But sometimes we can lose sight that right here in our own communities, we face the very same challenges. What you need, what I'm offering, I believe, is a partner. You're not looking for a handout. No one's going to ride to the rescue and solve all your problems. It's just not the way the world works. But if your community is willing to get organized, if you propose the solutions, put them on the table, and you say, hey, Beto, I need the state to do X, I need the federal government funds that pass through the state to do Y, our community will pick up the balance and meet you halfway, we are going to be able to get that done. When you think about utilities, water's one of them, but in 1936, Congressman, before he was senator or president, Lyndon Baines Johnson, worked with President Franklin Delano Roosevelt to extend electricity to communities like these and more rural and remote ones that are connected to Lufkin. No electric company was going to spend the money to extend the infrastructure out there. They'd never make their dollars back. And we weren't going to give it away in the middle of the Great Depression, but we said if you will form a cooperative, if those farmers and ranchers and mom and pop business owners and homeowners in your community will put up what they can, we, the state of Texas, and we, the federal government, will meet you halfway. We call it the Rural Electrification Administration. Wiring these communities for light and for speed made the kids who grew up in them feel every bit as worthwhile and valuable as any kid in any other part of the state or the world for that matter. Think about what kids feel like in her community when day after day, year after year, they know that our state government has yet to lift a finger to make sure that they are safe and that they can drink the water. We're going to show those kids that they count, that they matter to us. We are investing in you because we're going to partner with you. Thank you for coming out here. We will get this done. I want to make sure we hear what now, before Cynthia makes her final announcement, I've got two quick ones that I want to make. One, Chrissy, our friend Chrissy Clayburgh, who's married to our next land commissioner, Jay Clayburgh. She wants to sign you up to knock on doors, to host a candidates, to do the things that are going to win this election. And then next to Chrissy and against this back wall, if he'll raise his hand and maybe even step forward, is Jamar Jefferson, otherwise known as JJ, your next member of Congress for this community. We have seen him in every town hall that we've been to. And you know what? He's not just here at the end shaking hands with people as they leave, trying to win votes. He's there from the very beginning, listening to every question, every concern that comes up from every person. We talked about partnering with the federal government at the state level, with the local level. This is going to be the leader of the federal effort in this community. I want you all to please vote for Jamar Jefferson. He's going to be on the ballot with us. Thank you, Jamar, for coming out. Miss Cynthia,
Okay, if you all would like to stay and say hi or take a picture, we're going to line up on this side of the wall. If you all see the flag in the back by the whiteboard in the corner, in front of the Texas flag, Angela's putting her hand there. There you go, Angela. Show them where we'll line up in the direction there. And then you're going to